For the best aerospace era, this is Mansplaining. Here's the host, Anthony L. Seeley.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Whoever holds the high ground holds the advantage. There is no higher metaphoric high ground than space. For the U.S. to get there, a few vital components are needed in order for an ambitious space program to exist. First, the government needed the motivation, then a space agency to support and organize the various elements. Then someone with scientific expertise in rocket science would be needed. But most importantly, who is going to fly these experimental spacecrafts? We are going to have to put together a team. First, let's look at 1957. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president. The Milwaukee Braves won the World Series, defeating the New York Yankees. Hank Aaron was on that team. Also, Jackie Robinson retired from baseball this year. Infamous serial killer Ed Gein was arrested. A major hurricane named Audrey made landfall in Louisiana, killing 400 people. Sam Hanks won the Indianapolis 500. Elvis Presley's #1 hit, Jailhouse Rock, was hitting the airwaves. Jimmy Hoffa was arrested on bribery charges. The Hamilton Watch Company introduced the first electric-powered wristwatch. And Auburn was the college football national champion. Those are just a few headline stories on your TV or radio or in the newspapers that you would see. But one event in October shocked the nation. Here's a headline printed in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in October 1957. Sputnik whizzes by as thousands watch. Sputnik 1 was launched on October 4th, 1957. The satellite was launched from a Soviet complex near Baikonur, Kazakhstan, using the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, the Samyorka, or R-7 rocket. This scientific marvel occurred during the International Geophysical Year, an unprecedented cooperation and collaboration event between scientists from 67 nations to study the Earth and its atmosphere. Sputnik 1 was only a successful test that would set the stage for more ambitious space projects in the future for the Soviets. The press and the attention globally brought shock and admiration. The Soviet leader, Nikita Khrushchev, and the Communist Party officials saw this event as a way to further their agenda. As I said before, throughout human history, whoever holds the high ground holds the advantage. And that's what the Soviet Union had achieved. If the R-7 rocket could deliver a satellite into orbit, then it could potentially deliver a human there as well. The more ominous realization was that the Soviets now had an intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM, that could deliver a payload to anywhere on Earth. That includes atomic warheads of mass destruction. The Soviets had the high ground, and the U.S. government now had the motivation to get serious about space. On April 2nd, 1958, President Dwight D. Eisenhower sent a message to Congress proposing, with their support, to the establishing of a space agency. In the message, he emphasized it should be under civilian control rather than under the military. This is somewhat of a surprising decision by President Eisenhower, as he was a highly decorated five-star general of the U.S. Army and the architect of the invasion of Normandy during World War II. In his message, he said, "A civilian setting for the administration of the space function would emphasize the concern of our nation that outer space be devoted to peaceful and scientific purposes." The NACA, the National Advisory Committee of Aeronautics, a federal agency formed all the way back in 1915, was the basis for this new administration. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration became official that July 1958. So now the U.S. had a government body to organize and spearhead the space effort. Now, as for rocket scientists, that of course would be Wernher von Braun and his team. If you listen to my episode, The Mouse Meets the Missile, then you already have some background information on him. Von Braun and his team, working out of the Army Ballistic Missile Agency, or ABMA, out of Huntsville, Alabama, used their rocket, the Redstone, to launch the U.S. first satellite, Explorer 1, on February 1st, 1958. This came after a failed attempt by the U.S. Navy Project Vanguard. The McDonnell Aircraft Corporation won the bid to build the first U.S. spacecraft that would take an American into space. They designed and manufactured fighter jets for the U.S. military, most notably the F-4 Phantom II. So they were a logical choice. This program to take a human into space for the first time in history would be named Project Mercury. By the way, has anyone seen a Mercury spacecraft, or a Mercury capsule as some people call it? You don't so much get into it as you put it on. There are openings for where your feet and legs fit into. It was very tight and cramped inside. We'll talk about the actual spacecraft in a future episode. Now, what should be the professional title for the humans that would be launched into space? This was a whole new occupation. It was decided that these humans would be referred to as astronauts. The word astronaut is a combination of Greek words, astro meaning star, and naut meaning sailor. But who should be considered for this endeavor? It was a lengthy process of around 500 candidates that were considered. After a process of physical and psychological tests, 7 were selected. Here they are in no particular order: Deke Slayton, Gus Grissom, Alan Shepard, Wally Schurter, John Glenn, Scott Carpenter, Gordon Cooper. Let's have a look at their resumes and see why they were selected over so many other candidates. This will also indicate what kind of skills and background NASA was looking for in an astronaut. First, there was Donald K. Slayton, or Deke as he would later be nicknamed. Slayton was born in Sparta, Wisconsin in 1924. After graduating from Sparta High School, he joined the Army Air Corps in April 1942. He served in the European theater as a pilot in the 140th Bombardment Group. Slayton flew the legendary B-25 bomber in 56 combat missions. In 1944, he returned to the U.S. to be an instructor. However, World War II was not done with Slayton. In 1945, he returned to action in the Pacific Theater and flew 7 more combat missions over Japan. Once the war was over, Slayton attended the University of Minnesota, studying aeronautical engineering while serving in the Minnesota National Guard. He then went to work for Boeing for a short time before being recalled to service. He applied to be a test pilot and made his way to Edwards Air Force Base in the mid-1950s. This is where he got the nickname Deke, because there were 2 other test pilots named Donald serving there. He went by DK for a time, which morphed into Deke. He conducted tests of a number of experimental jet aircraft while at Edwards. Next, let's have a look at Virgil Ivan Grissom, better known as Gus Grissom. He was born in Mitchell, Indiana, on April 3, 1926. Grissom became an aviation cadet after graduating from Mitchell High School in 1944. However, he was discharged in November 1945 as World War II came to an end. After graduating from Purdue University in 1950 with a degree in mathematical engineering, Grissom finally received his pilot's wings in 1951. Grissom served as an F-86 fighter pilot in the Korean War. He flew 100 combat missions in the 334th Fighter Interceptor Squadron. After the Korean War armistice, he became a jet pilot instructor. Grissom attended the Air Force Institute of Technology at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, to study aeronautical engineering in 1955. He went on to the Test Pilot School at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Next, we have Alan B. Shepard, Jr., born on November 18, 1923, in East Derry, New Hampshire. Shepard graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy with a Bachelor's of Science degree in 1944. That same year, Shepard began his military career, serving on the destroyer USS Coswell in the Pacific. After World War II, he attended flight training at the Naval Air Station in Corpus Christi, Texas, and the Naval Air Station in Pensacola, Florida. Shepard received his naval aviation wings in 1947. Assigned to the fighter squadron, he flew the F-4U Corsair and served on the aircraft carrier the U.S. Franklin D. Roosevelt. In 1950, Shepard attended the U.S. Naval Test Pilot School at Naval Air Station Patuxent River, Maryland. After graduating the following year, he was assigned to the Fighter Squadron 193rd in the carrier USS Oriskany in the Pacific. He returned after 2 tours. He resumed test flying and attended the Naval Air College, Newport, Rhode Island. Next we have Walter M. Shura, Jr., born in Hackensack, New Jersey, on March 12, 1923. You could say Walter or Wally Shura was born to fly. His father was a fighter pilot in World War I, and both of his parents performed in air shows in the 1920s. After graduating from Dwight Moore High School in 1940, he enrolled in the New Jersey Institute of Technology. However, he decided to attend the U.S. Naval Academy after the attack on Pearl Harbor. He graduated from the Naval Academy in 1945 and served on the cruiser USS Alaska in the Pacific. As aviation was in his blood, Shura earned his wings in 1948 after flight training at the Naval Air Station in Pensacola, Florida. Shura served in the Korean War as an F-84 Thunderjet pilot in the 154th Fighter Bombardment Squadron and flew 90 combat missions. After the Korean War, Shura became a test pilot for the Naval Weapons Center, China Lake, California. He went on to attend the Naval Test Pilot School at Patuxent River, Maryland, and became a test pilot for the Navy. Are you beginning to see a pattern here? Next is a name most Americans are familiar with, John Glenn. Born John Herschel Glenn Jr. on July 18, 1921, in Cambridge, Ohio. He joined the Naval Aviation Cadet Program after the attack on Pearl Harbor, graduating in 1943. Glenn was commissioned in the Marine Corps in the 155th Fighter Squadron. He piloted the Vought F-4U Corsair in 59 combat missions against the Japanese Empire. Glenn remained in the Pacific after World War II with the 218th Fighter Squadron in the North China Patrol. In the years leading up to the Korean War, Glenn was an advanced flight instructor and enrolled in the Amphibious Warfare School at Quantico, Virginia. During the Korean conflict, he piloted the F-86 Sabre in 63 combat missions with the Marine Fighter Squadron 111th. He also flew 27 more missions with the Air Force. In the years after the Korean conflict, he attended the test pilot school at the Naval Air Test Center at Patuxent River, Maryland, before being assigned to the Fighter Design Branch of the Navy Bureau of Aeronautics in Washington from November 1956 to April 1959. Glenn somehow also found time to attend classes at the University of Maryland. Next up, we have Malcolm Scott Carpenter, born on May 1st, 1925, in Boulder, Colorado. Like the others on this list, he wanted to become a naval aviator to fight against the Japanese Empire, so he became a training cadet. World War II would end before Carpenter was needed, so he enrolled at the University of Colorado to study aeronautical engineering. In 1949, he joined the U.S. Navy and received flight training in Corpus Christi, Texas, and in Pensacola, Florida. He served in the Korean War. However, unlike the others mentioned, Carpenter flew reconnaissance and anti-submarine patrol missions. He piloted the consolidated PB-4Y2 Privateer and the consolidated B-24 Liberator. He did not have a fighter pilot background like the others. After Korea, Carpenter went on to attend the Navy Test Pilot School at Patuxent River, Maryland, in 1954, before being assigned to the Electronics Test Division of the Naval Air Test Center. He did this from 1957 to 1958. Carpenter attended the Navy General Line School and the Navy Air Intelligence School. He was the Air Intelligence Officer to the aircraft carrier, the USS Hornet. Last but not least, we have Gordon Cooper, born Leroy Gordon Cooper, Jr., on March 6, 1927, in Shawnee, Oklahoma. You could also say Cooper was born to fly as well. His father served in the U.S. Army Air Corps and the U.S. Air Force before retiring as a colonel. Cooper Sr. took him up on his first plane ride at age 5. Cooper was already flying solo in his early teens. Cooper's family moved to Murray, Kentucky, as military families often moved around, and graduated from the Murray High School in 1945. After high school, he served in the Marine Corps until 1946. Cooper then moved to Hawaii because that's where his parents moved, and there he enrolled in the University of Hawaii. Cooper joined the U.S. Air Force in 1949. After he completed flight training in the Perrin Air Force Base and in Williams Air Force Base in Arizona, he was assigned to the 86th Fighter Bomber Group in West Germany. He flew the F-84 Thunderjet and F-86 Sabre from 1950 to 1954. In 1954, he returned back to the States to attend the Air Force Institute of Technology at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. His next move was to enroll in the Air Force Experimental Test Flight School at Edwards Air Force Base, California. Cooper graduated in 1957. He served as an aeronautical engineer and test pilot in the Performance Engineering branch of the Test Flight Division at Edwards Air Force Base. I recommend the New Mexico Museum of Space History website, nmspacemuseum.org, for a more detailed profile on the Mercury 7. Now you may be wondering, what does New Mexico have to do with the Mercury 7 and space history? For one, astronaut candidates went through a gauntlet of medical testing at the Lovelace Clinic in Albuquerque, New Mexico, under the direction of Dr. William Randolph Lovelace II. Extensive medical testing were crucial in determining the candidates, because keep in mind that in the 1950s, no one really knew if a human being could physically be launched into orbit, survive weightlessness, and then make it through re-entry alive. Those in exceptional and optimal health were selected based on the test results from Dr. Lovelace. He helped select the first astronauts. Now, looking at their resumes from air combat missions, education from top universities, and their dedication to testing and flying experimental aircraft, they represented the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, and spent thousands of hours in the air piloting various jet aircraft that would later be chosen to be used for the U.S. military. They were all former fighter pilots, and some of them saw action, with the exception of Scott Carpenter. And they all had engineering degrees, with the exception of John Glenn. It is evident that they were all prime candidates. They went through places like Patuxent, Wright-Patterson, and Edwards. That's where you find the best jet pilots. Some say they had the right stuff, and this is the place they looked to put a team together. Now, were there arguments for other sorts of pilots, or those in the academic world? And also, what about people of other races or genders? There were those arguments, but that's a story for another time. All of these men would eventually fly in space and become national icons, but not all would remain household names to this day. One of the Mercury 7 astronauts would not fly on a Mercury spacecraft. He would actually have to wait more than a decade later after the program ended. Do you know which one? The point I want to make here with this episode is that I believe it is important to look at the Mercury 7's career and education here on Earth before reporting on what their accomplishments were in space. The Mercury 7, as they were known, were formally introduced by NASA to the public and the world on April 9th, 1959, to great fanfare. How many current military test pilots can you name today? Deke Slayton, Gus Grissom, Alan Shepard, Wally Schirra, John Glenn, Scott Carpenter, and Gordon Cooper were thrust into the public's eyes and on the world stage that day. During the press conference, it was stated that one of the Mercury 7 would be the first man in space. A reporter asked the 7, "Which one of you will be the first one in space?" They all confidently raised their hands. John Glenn actually raised both of his hands. Little did they know that on the other side of the earth, a man from Glushno, Russia, raised his hand first. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, there is always a light at the end of the runway.
Follow Mansplaining for more stories from the best aerospace era, or go to bestaerospaceera.com or find us on social media.